Welcome to Computer Club. Last week we were creating a Pac-Man game, and I have put a post up on our website regarding that. We started off with developing the costumes for the Pac-Man and the Ghost, and then introducing some code to make the Pac-Man move. So we're going to look at that code again, and we're going to recreate that today, and then we're going to see what sort of code we can create for our Ghost, and then move on to make some sprites that our Pac-Man will eat. So some dots like the traditional game. So clicking over to here, here's our Pac-Man. We can see it has two costumes, one closed and one open. So one of the things we want to do is switch between two costumes while our Pac-Man is moving. Create a very simple program to do that. So I'm going to grab myself a control block, actually an event block to start off with. I am going to make sure I can see my Pac-Man by going to looks and clicking on show. The next thing I'm going to do is I think I will set my Pac-Man in a certain position on the screen actually. So let's go to motion. We want to move the Pac-Man to where we want him to appear each time. So I'm going to move him up to top here. Top corner will do. Now I'm going to click on the go to command and it'll set that position. Let's just check that. I'm going to check that by moving my Pac-Man into the middle, then clicking the go to X 176, Y 155. That should take my Pac-Man to the corner, which it does. So I'm going to click it in there. I click on show. Now we need to get our Pac-Man moving. So we're going to use a special block called a forever block, because we want our Pac-Man doing this procedure all of the time. And we're going to use an if else block. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if touching mouse pointer, we'll need that under sensing, if touching mouse pointer, this is when we want the Pac-Man to stop. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to motion and we're going to make motion 0. Now when we want the Pac-Man moving around and it's not touching the pointer, we want it following the pointer, thus creating its movement. So we're going to get a command that tells it to point towards the mouse pointer. We look through here, point towards mouse pointer, but not. You can see what it does when we do that. It's not really very helpful because there's no movement, so we need to get it to go forward a certain distance. So let's try forward 10 steps, see what it does. Here we go. Now we have it moving around. That's pretty fast. So you're going to slow it down a little bit. Let's try halving that speed. Let's say 5. Okay, that's quite a good speed for what we want. Now, this Pac-Man is actually a little bit too large, so instead of trying to resize it in the costume area, I'm going to put a command in looks, and I'm just going to reduce that, set the size at the very beginning to, let's say, 50%. See what that looks like. A lot smaller. Now I'm going to link those blocks up and let's see what it does. Right. That's the sort of movement we want, and it stops when it touches the pointer. Great. But we want the mouth to open and close, so we're going to have to create a procedure. So I'm going to again get a start block, and again a loop block, because we want this to be going all the time. I'm going to pop it into there. We need a next costume block, and we'll show you what that does when you click on it. It just changes the costume from that to that. And we want that changing costume all the time, but if we do this, it's going to sort of slightly crazy, so we want to put some delay in there. So we're going to get a wait block from the control blocks. And we're going to not wait 1 second. We're going to try 0.2 of a second. You can adjust this to the level that you want, but that tends to work well for me. So there we have the Pac-Man moving around. The next step is to create a ghost. And the ghost is our enemy. It's going to follow us around. So we need to get a set of instructions to tell the ghost to follow us. So we're going to our event again. We're going to go looks, and we're going to go show, because we want to show the ghost to start off with. We're going to send the ghost to the middle of the screen, which is the origin point, which is 0, 0. Ghost will always start there. Let's have a look what that does. Okay. Again, the ghost is rather large, so we're going to go back to that size command. See if you can work out how to do that without following my instructions. I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to talk about it, so you might want to think about how you're going to do that. Okay, let's have a look at that. Yep, that's a better size. Now, the next step is we want this ghost to point towards the Pac-Man, because the ghost is going to try and gobble us up. So we will do something very similar to what we did with the Pac-Man following the mouse pointer. We are going to use a forever block, and we're going to find a motion command that says point towards, but not point towards the mouse pointer this time. We're going to say point towards Pac-Man, an actual sprite. And we are going to make that motion. We've got to give it a speed. Let's see what it does at the moment. Oh, that just stays on us. That's weird. Oh, I've said go to Pac-Man, not point to. Oh, better change that. Get rid of that one. Where's the point towards? Here we go. Point towards Pac-Man. That's going to work a little bit better. Okay, so this time it's going to just follow us around. But not only do we want it to point towards us, we want it actually to come towards us as well. So we're going to have to give it some motion. 10 steps would be really quick. That would get us and capture us very fast. So let's say 2 steps. Okay, now we can run away from it. We're a little bit faster than the ghost, but the ghost will catch us if we're not careful. One thing we're going to do is we're going to click on here. We're going to actually name this Ghost 1. G-O-A-S-T-1. I think we'll call it Ghost 1. You not need to give it a number, but we will to start off with. See if we need it. Alright. We're going to introduce some broadcasting very soon. So, let's have a look. Ghost. See how that works. Yep. Works fine. One thing we can do is we can duplicate the ghost and create another ghost, but we've got to put a few more things in place yet. So what we want to happen next is when the ghost catches the Pac-Man, Pac-Man will go back to his spot, and the ghost will go back to his spot or her spot. Let's click on Pac-Man. So how are we going to do that? Well, again, we're going to need, let's have a start block. We're going to need a forever block. And we're going to need a conditional block that says if then. So we are going to need some sort of block that senses touching. So a sensing block, touching. If touching goes to 1, we are going to do something. We are going to firstly disappear. We're going to hide. Then we are going to go to our spot, which is this place here. Just make sure it's there to start off with. I'm going to have to put that amount in this time. go to 178, 155. We are going to show once it gets there, but I think we'll put a wee delay in there as well. Let's say a second at least. We could do more, but let's try a second to see if that works. And we are going to do the same with the ghost, or something similar with the ghost. Let's just see how that works. That second delay may be too much. Yeah, we're going to have to do something a little bit different. Okay, we're going to try repeating this blue block here. Let's just duplicate that. So we want it to hide and go to that location. Then we want it to wait for a second. We're going to send it back to that location, and then we're going to show in that location. So that stops it from moving out of that location in the meanwhile. Let's try that. That works a little better. Otherwise we won't know where our Pac-Man has got to. Now, as soon as we are caught, we are going to use a command called broadcast, which you'll find out why it's useful later on, but at the moment there are different ways. This is the best way to do it because we're going to be dealing with multiple ghosts later on. So when Pac-Man has been caught by the ghost, we are going to send a message called, let's say, caught. And we're going to say, when this ghost receives caught, when I receive caught, the ghost is going to do something very similar to the Pac-Man. It's going to do this whole hide and go to and wait and so forth. So we could actually, a quick way of doing that is actually dragging that over and copying the code, but we're going to just remember the code from there. So we're going to say, when receiving caught, Pac-Man is going to hide. Pac-Man is going to go to the location 0, 0. Pac-Man is going to wait, not Pac-Man, Ghost is going to wait for at least 1 second. And then Ghost is also going to go back to that location once more, 0, 0. And then Ghost is going to show. Let's see how this works. Right. So Pac-Man's being chased by the ghost. Oh, it's going that way. It's going to get him. Boom. Ghost goes back to the middle and Pac-Man goes back to his position. Right. I think we could move on to creating a sprite dot that the Pac-Man can eat and get points for. That will be probably next week. This week I think we will create our first variable, and it's going to be called lives. So Pac-Man, we might give Pac-Man 4 lives, so make a variable called lives. And I'm just going to click on Pac-Man because lives should be for Pac-Man. It's going to say for the sprite only. Click OK. So now Pac-Man has, as you see, 0 lives. So the first thing we need to do is give Pac-Man the number of lives we want to give him. So we will go back to data, and we're going to set his lives. And this is where you can do a wee hack. We'll set his lives to 4. What else do we need to do? So we're showing his lives up there. We can not show it, but we want to show it. We've got to change his lives by -1 if he gets caught. So we need to put this into the script somewhere So see if you can think about where that might go. I'll give you a chance to think about that. You can pause the video if you want to. Alright, I'm going to tell you where it's going to go now. So it's going to go over in this command that talks about touching. So if it's touching goes to 1, it's going to lose a life. So it's going to broadcast caught. We could use the broadcast command also to take the life away. So every time the caught is broadcast, it would take the life away. I think that might be a nice way of doing that. So let's try that. When I receive caught, change lives by 1. Now I want to put another command in here because when lives are 0, it's got to be game over. So let's bring this down. We're going to say we need an if command, and we need a forever block to be checking that all the time to see if lives are equal to 0. We need this is an important one. We need an operator this time, and we're going to get the operator, which is the equals operator, and then we're going to go back to variables and grab this lives, pop it in that. We're going to say if lives equals 0, then we want everything to stop, so we're going to get the control block that says stop all. Stop all, which stops the entire game. Let's see how that works. We're going to go on big screen and check it out. So Pac-Man's got, lost a life. Oh, watch out. Oh, lost another life. Lives are equal to 2. Oh, lost another life, and this one should end the game. If we lose another life, 0, and the game stops. Cool. If you want to do something extra, you could create a dot sprite for the Pac-Man to eat, but at the moment, clean my script up, at the moment that's as far as we're going to go for this tutorial. Thanks for listening. Be back next week with the second tutorial.